Hi everyone, Simona here from Vectortwist. In this tutorial today, I would like to show you how to create a fantasy planet in space with other planets and rings around in Adobe Illustrator. Before we start, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and also hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when the next tutorial is live. So without further ado, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is to create our backdrop. So with the layers, make sure you create a new layer. Mine I call BG for background. Of course, you can call it whatever you like. In my swatches panel, you can also see that I've already set up my colors. I'm going to work primarily with purples, pinks, some blues, and some bright colors like yellows. These colors you can easily adjust. Just make sure you choose dark colors for your background and then some lighter colors for your planet. The first step is to create our shapes. The first step we're going to do is select the lighter purple, and then we're going to select the pencil tool. Now double-click the pencil tool in the toolbar, and make sure your fidelity is set to smooth. At the same time, you also want to check Fill New Pencil Strokes, and maybe keep selected if you like. This is not necessary, but I usually keep it selected because I often want the shape to be transformed right away. Then press OK. Now we're going to create a simple shape, just like this. You can see the shape is filled with the foreground fill that we've chosen, and it's still selected. Then we can move on to the next step. We're going to offset it. So select Object, Path, and then choose Offset Path. I already set a negative value, so it will make it smaller. I chose -20 points. Feel free to change that value to your liking. Then press OK. It's still selected, so let's change the color right away. Let's choose a darker purple. Then we're going to repeat this step. So let's offset it again. Path, Offset Path. And again, -20 points, press OK. Once more, we're going to change the color into a darker purple. Now let's deselect all of the shapes. This is going to be setting the universe space for our planet. We just want to offset things a little bit. So let's pull the shapes to the right so we get a little bit more dynamic feel. Again, make sure you're still working on your layer that you called background or BG or whatever you like. Once we finish that, we're going to add an effect to our shapes. Select the outer shape, go to Effect, go to Stylize and choose Inner Glow. Now I already put the proper values in. We want the mode to be multiply, have a really dark color, maybe black, have the opacity set to 25% and the blur to 20, and have it set to the edge. Then press OK. We're going to do that to the other shape as well. Just select it, then go to Effect, and instead of repeating the step to go to Stylize and then Inner Glow, you can just select Apply Inner Glow because this is the last effect we've chosen. Now this effect is looking like a cutout. It really helps to add some dimension to your design. Now we can move on to create the planet. So first I'm going to zoom in, and then I'm going to lock my background layer. We're going to create a new layer, double-click it, and we're going to call it Planet. Make sure it's highlighted so you know that you're going to be working on your layer that you call Planet. Now we're going to create several steps to create our planet. It's very simple. It's just really a build-up of one step after the other. So let's go through it. First, we're going to choose a really light color. In my case here, I'm going to work with a salmon-like or peach-like color. Then we're going to choose the Ellipse tool, and we're going to create a circle. So I'm going to press the Option and the Shift key, and then drag it out from the middle. This will constrain the ellipse and create a perfect circle for us. Once you let go, you can see now we've created the base shape for our planet. We want to create a sickle-like shape, so I'm going to drag out a copy, then make another copy and push it a little bit to the left. Select both of them, then we open up the Pathfinder panel, and then we're going to press the Shape Mode -front. Since the first shape here is on top, it will cut out everything else. So click it, and then you can see you just have a sickle-like shape. Let's go back to our base shape for the planet and change it from the light color into a darker color. In this case, I chose a red. Then we can move the sickle-like shape on top of the shape. Since I'm using the Smart Guides, you can turn them on under View, Smart Guides. I can easily place it on top. Then we're going to continue to build up our planet. So select the base shape, create a copy in front. So go to Edit, Copy, and then back to Edit, paste in front. Or use the shortcut for this. Command C or Control C, and then Command F or Control F to paste it in front. Then we're going to apply a gradient to this shape. I have already created a gradient. When I open up the gradient panel, you can see I have my light color, and then I have my red color. But the red color stop I've set to opacity 0, meaning that it won't show up. Then I'm going to activate the gradient annotator, press G on the keyboard, and then I'm going to drag it out from the top right. You can move it in place a little bit, but you can see now I'm creating a highlight on the top right part of my planet. Then we're going to continue the steps. Again, I'm going to select it. Again, create a copy in front. So press Command or Control and C, and then Command or Control and F. We're going to change the gradient fill into a darker one. So it's this one here. I go back to the gradient panel. I can show you I have a dark red. The lighter red, again, set to 0% opacity. The other one is set to 100% opacity. I activate the gradient annotator again, so press G on the keyboard, and then drag it from the bottom left onto the planet. Can probably push it in a little bit, or even move the whole gradient towards the top right. As you can see, our gradients don't fall on top of our sickle shape, so we have to move it backwards. So select your sickle shape, open up your layers panel. Since we're working on our own layers, you can see the path is on top of everything else. Let's place it underneath our gradient shapes. So basically, just on top of our base shape. That makes it fade away a little bit better and just gives a visually nicer look to our fantasy planet. Now the next step is to create some kind of weather pattern for our fantasy planet. We're going to use the dark red gradient for the fill, and then I choose just simply the pencil tool. And then I'm going to create some waves on top of our planet. You want to make sure that they're sticking out on the side, so it has to be bigger than the planet, so we can clip it to it. So it's going to look something like this. So I'm just going to draw, just like this. I'm going to create some waves. They can be thin, they can be long, it doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to close it. I'm going to move it over. Maybe with the direct selection tool, I'm going to select a sharp corner and then round it out. I can do this easily by my rounded corner widgets. If you don't see them, turn them on under View. And then it says here for me, Hide Corner Widgets. If you don't have to turn them on, it would say View Corner Widgets or Show Corner Widgets. Then I need to adjust my gradient a little bit. So again, Gradient Annotator. And then maybe from the bottom left to the top right, I'm going to draw the gradient. I'm going to adjust it a little bit to have it darker on my left side and fade it away on my right side. Now all I have to do is clip this path to my planet. So we're going to select one of the shapes and create a copy. So Command or Control and C and Command or Control and F. And then you're going to go to Object, Arrange, and then send it to front. Keep it selected, press the Shift key and hold it, and then select the shape. And then we're going to apply a clipping mask. Shortcut for this is Command or Control and 7, or you could go to Object, Clipping Mask, and select Make. The next several step is simply again creating some gradients on top of our planet. We just want to add some color, some warmer tones and some cooler tones, so we get the feel that this planet is actually floating in space surrounded by a universe. This is all going to be on top of our clipping mask that we've just created, and we want to have the exact same shape of our base planet. So just select it, open up the Layers panel, and then just lock your clipping mask. So we can't select it now. Then you can select any shape, and then we repeat the step by creating a copy in front. So copy and then paste in front. We want to make sure that our clipping mask is below with our shape, so just drag it from the layers panel below the shape. And then we're going to add a new gradient to it. This time we're going to add a gradient for the top right here. I have a gradient created here with the yellow. So I'm going to add it, again with the gradient annotator. I'm going to drag from the top down to the left, and then just add that really bright yellow highlight. Just adjust it a little bit in size if you want it to have less vibrant or much stronger. It's really up to you what look you're going for. I think this looks pretty good. If I select it and go to the gradient panel, this is what it looks like. On the left I have a bright yellow gradient slider, and on the right again the red, but set to 0% opacity. So now we've added a really bright hotspot top right. Let's do the same to the bottom left, but it's going to be a different gradient. It's going to be a cool color gradient instead of a bright one. So select it, copy, and then paste in front. You can check your layers. We've pasted it in front. And then the gradient's going to be blue, so I'm going to add it. Gradient annotator. I'm going to drag it from the bottom right. And you can see it's giving us a really nice bright gradient, but with cooler tones. You can adjust it easily, move it out of the way, or even make it a little bit bigger, probably just like that. Now you can see that our planet already gets some dimension. And all we really did is added one circle after the other and just added different fills. Some solid colors and then some gradients where one of the gradient sliders is set to 0 opacity. I think we only have 2 more steps to do. So 2 more gradients. So again, we'll select it, copy, and then paste in front. Maybe we're going to have a mix of blue and yellow as a gradient. I've created one already. I'm going to add it to show you what it looks like. This time we have a darker blue, not a bright cyan blue. But as you can see, the gradient slider is set to 30% opacity, and the yellow is set to 20% opacity. I'm going to adjust how it falls. So with the gradient annotator, I'm going to drag it from the bottom left to the top right, just like that. If I select the shape and move it out of the way, you can see how strong it is. Sometimes you just have to play around a little bit with the gradients to see what happens. Maybe I want to have it a little bit bigger and push it out of the way. If it is too strong, just with the gradient annotator, activate it and then move your gradient slider and adjust your gradient. And then one last step for the planet. Again, select one of the shapes, create a copy, and then paste it in front. And I think we need to have a little bit of a red on the outside. So this would be again a radial gradient. Most of the gradients I'm working with are radial, except for the blues here. You can see that. So the last one I'm going to add is this one here. It's actually a pink gradient. If I open up the gradient panel, the gradient is set to a radial gradient, and I have 2 stops. The same color, a bright pink on the outside set to 50%, and then the red color again set to 0% opacity. With the gradient annotator, I'm going to drag it to be just a little bit bigger than the circle itself and then move it into the middle and then adjusting it. So basically I want to have more pink on the bottom and not so much on the top. And you can easily see how I can move the gradient around in my shape to give that effect. So we want to create an effect of a drop shadow below our planet. Now we can go several ways about this. We could create a circle, then we could apply an effect. Under Effect, Stylize, and then choose Drop Shadow. But I'd rather not do that. I'd rather just work with gradients. So I have a gradient created here. If I activate it and show you in the gradient panel, it's a really dark purple, set to 100%. Then the other gradient slider is set to 0%. The purple has to be darker than our background here, so make sure that it's really dark or even black. Then we're going to create a circle, probably just a little bit smaller than our planet, just like this. And then in the gradient panel, we're going to reverse the order of the gradient sliders. So just click Reverse Gradient. And as you can see, it's now here in the middle. I think we can increase our circle a little bit in size. And then we're going to send it to the back. So go to Object, arrange, and then send to back. We have now a drop shadow below our planet. We can drag it away a little bit more and maybe even increase it if you would like to have a bigger drop shadow. And with the gradient annotator, you can increase it as well. The next step is to create the rings around our fantasy planet. We're going to stay with the layer planet because it's all going to be part of the planet. For this, we're just going to work with ellipses and the stroke. We're going to choose a really bright blue and then switch it from the fill to the stroke. Then use the ellipse tool and then create an ellipse just like this that is bigger and wider than your planet. Then with the free transform tool, just press E, rotate it into the proper position that you want your rings to be. Maybe we're going to shrink it down a little bit, make it smaller, and then we're going to create a copy in front with the shortcut Command or Control C and Command or Control F, and then make it bigger than your first ring. Now we have two, and instead of creating multiples, we're just going to use the blend tool. So select both of the rings, then go to Object, Blend, Make, then double-click the blend tool in the toolbar to get the blend options and change the spacing from smooth color to specified steps and increase it to maybe 3 steps and then press OK. Once you've done that, go back to Object, the shape is still selected, go back to Blend and then select Expand. Now let's zoom in. Now we need to have the stroke scope behind the planet. There are several ways to go about this too. You could create copies, cut it, place it behind, and so forth. But I want to show you a much simpler way. We're going to be working with the transparency panel. First, we have to select the shape of our planet and then create a copy to the clipboard. So simply just press Command or Control and C. Then we're going to select the rings, go to the transparency panel, and then select Make Mask. Now you can see it's still selected, but you can't see them anymore, the rings. What we have to do is uncheck this here called Clip. Now they're visible again. Now we have to create our mask. Since we want to have the rings be totally hidden as if they were going in the back of the planet, we're going to paste in front what we've just copied. Now we need to paste the exact same shape of the planet for our mask. We copied it to the clipboard, so all we have to do is paste it now into the transparency mask that we've just created. One thing you have to make sure is that you select actually the opacity mask, so it is active, not the rings. Then you're going to paste the shape, so Command or Control and F, and then we have to change the fill instead of the gradient into a black. Now, of course, everything is hidden again, even the front. Well, all we have to do is cut our clipping mask. So make sure this is still active. Then with the scissors tool, either choose them from the toolbar or shortcut C on the keyboard, we're going to cut our shape and then we're going to delete the bottom part. And now you can see the back is hidden and the front shows. Now all we have to do is leave the transparency mask. So make sure that you click on the rings and then you can click anywhere on the artboard and you've left the transparency mask. When we select the rings, the shape is still intact. We've just created a mask. But the important part is that you uncheck the clip, and then when you create the mask inside, make sure you're highlighted on the transparency mask window. To exit, double click to the front, and you're good to go. Now we're going to make a few small changes to our rings. They look a little bit boring. So we're going to select them and then use the width tool. So select the width tool from the toolbar, and then we're going to just make the parts a little bit bigger on the outside and have them smaller in the inside, just like that. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it better. Maybe this one here we're going to make a little bit bigger, and then on the other side, maybe here we're going to stretch it out a little bit. Now when I zoom out, our rings just have a little bit of a different look. If you find it's too much, you can always reselect them, use the width tool, make them really thin or a little bit thicker, or just adjust them so you have different rings with different sizes and different looks. Now we are almost finished with our fantasy planet. We just have to add a little bit more dimension to our background and create like a sunspot behind the planet. So let's do this right away. In the Layers panel, make sure you lock your planet layer and unlock the background layer. We're going to choose the darker inside part and we're going to create a copy in the front. So let's go to Edit, Copy, and then Paste in front. We're going to apply a really dark gradient. I've already used it for the planet to create a drop shadow, so I'm going to reapply it. And as you can see, since it's a radial gradient with 100% of the color on the outside, and the second slider is set to 0%, we create the look that the inside is a little bit lighter and the outside is darker. All we have to do is use the gradient annotator and then move it around a little bit. Maybe make it a little bit bigger, change the angle, for example, maybe set it to 60 degrees or even 45 degrees. And then you can see that towards the planet it gets lighter, but the edges are darker. Then we're going to create another copy on top. So Command Control C, Command Control F, and then we're going to choose the knife and cut it into pieces. I just want a small part down here that I want to keep. So I'm just going to cut it like this. I'm going to delete the top part and then change the gradient fill into something different, something a little bit lighter purple. So maybe another radial gradient where I have a brighter purple, maybe from this shape here, but only set to 50% opacity, and the darker one to 0% opacity. And then with the gradient annotator, I'm just going to change it and push it to the bottom. So I have a little bit more of a highlight down here. At the same time, I'm also going to change the opacity via the transparency panel from normal to color dodge. Now this gives us a little bit of a brighter look on the bottom of our planet. It just makes it stand out a little bit more. You might have to play with the position of the gradient a little bit. It all depends where you would like to have it fall. Probably this is a good position. After that, we're going to create a sunspot behind our planet. So in the Layers panel, create a new layer on top of your background and call it Sunspot. Lock the background layer so we are not interfering with anything. We're going to create a rectangle. So choose the rectangle tool and create a rectangle probably about this size. And then we're going to fill it with a radial gradient, a really bright one. I already created one, so I'm going to apply it. In the gradient panel, you can see I used a bright yellow, set to 100%, and the second gradient slider is the dark purple, set to 0%. Then I'm going to activate the gradient annotator and shrink my gradient down a little bit, and then I'm going to move it into place. I think you get the idea. Basically, I'm using a rectangle, but this way I can control my radial gradient really well because my outside is set to 0 opacity and the inside is set to 100% yellow. Maybe about this size I'm going to have. Then with the rectangle selected, I'm opening up the transparency panel and set the setting from normal to color dodge. Now this creates a really bright sunspot just behind our planet. You can easily adjust it, make it a little bit bigger, move it closer to the planet, or further away from it. And that's pretty much it. Maybe a few adjustments with the planet itself. So I'm going to lock the sunspot, unlock the planet in the Layers panel. Actually, I'm going to have the Layers panel dragged out, expand it, and maybe change some of the layer options for our shapes that we've created that are filled with gradients. I think I'm going to choose this here. It's the one with the yellow and the blue. I'm going to highlight it and then see how I can change it from normal to something else. Maybe let's try soft light. This gives a little bit more definition down here. I think I really like that. Or maybe I'm going to try overlay. And then maybe another one, maybe the really bright one on top here. I'm going to select it and then also set it maybe to soft light. Now if I drag this away, you can see that our planet just got a little bit more dimension. So we've worked with a lot of ellipses, a lot of circles, and filled them with gradients. That can work really well if you use opacity in your gradients, but sometimes setting the whole transparency to a different setting than normal, maybe soft light or overlay, if you want to have it darker, maybe even choose multiply. And even in the case of our sunspot, we chose color dodge to make it really bright and then placed it behind our planet. And then we're almost finished. All we have to do now is add some smaller planets into the back of our universe. And maybe some moons on top of our rings here going around our planet. Now I already created them. I've made either copies of our original planet or simply created small circles and used the gradients that I've worked with in this tutorial. So I'm just going to paste them in so you know what the end result looks like. And here they are. As you can see, I created some moons for our rings. Maybe they could be even a little bit smaller. Then one that's a little bit bigger. I have tiny planets in the back, some bigger ones just around our main planet. And this is really it. Like if I select it, you can see it's just a circle filled with a radial gradient, going from red to the outside into 0 opacity of red. And that blends really well in with our universe backdrop. And this is it. This is how you can create a fantasy planet in Adobe Illustrator. And we really just used simple shapes, gradient fills, and even worked with transparency masks to have our rings wrap around our planet. Now I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give it a like, leave a comment, and if you create your own fantasy planet and share it on social media, make sure to tag Vectortwist. I would be really happy to see what you come up with. And that's it. I'll see you next time.